You know that feeling when you sense something like really deep inside of you? Like a calling, a yearning, like you have to explore something? You know what I mean? You don't know how to put it into words, at least not yet. Like it's coming from this deep place, like maybe it's coming from an old time in the distant past or the distant future. Or maybe it's coming from inside of you. Or maybe it's coming from way out there somewhere. Like the moon? Or past the moon? The stars? Past the stars? Maybe it's not based on time or space at all. Maybe it's in the water. Maybe it's in the trees. Maybe it's in the earthworms. Maybe it's in you. And maybe it's in me, this thing, this feeling, this, maybe we'll say calling. When someone expresses that kind of calling, if they feel this thing inside of them, this yearning, it's a sacred moment, and we need to take that seriously as we process that with them. Now, I remember feeling something when I was about 3. I was dancing to Kool and the Gang in the living room, entertaining my parents and their friends, and I remember looking at them with their cigarettes in their hand and their cocktails in the other, and I was like, I want to do this for the rest of my life. And then when I was 5, I signed up to be in the kindergarten circus play, and of course, I was the ringleader. And then when I was 10, I signed up for a local play, and I memorized lines, and I loved every second of it. And then when I was 15, I felt something a little bit different. See, because I was watching Showtime at the Apollo and Def Comedy Jam and Def Poetry Jam, and I wanted to do that. And I know that some of you don't know what that is, but that's okay. I wanted to be a comedian or an entertainer on the stage with a DJ up here with me, entertaining the crowd and getting everybody to dance. My truest calling of all. And then when I was 20 years old, I was playing baseball in college. I was about halfway through and realized, hey, I don't think I'm going to be a Major League Baseball player. My other childhood dream. And I shared this deep yearning in me with my friends, this thing that I'd felt ever since I was 3. And I told it to some people that were churchgoers. And right away, they just said to me, we know what this is. You're going to be a preacher. This calling that you have is from God, and you're going to be a pastor. And so I did that. I went down that path. Well, let me just pause there. I think there's a difference between the process of an institution trying to help someone with their calling versus the real calling itself. Their friends, their family, their communities, helping them to discern what that is. And so I just went down the path that they said that I was supposed to go down, because I guess they know better than me. And it reminded me of something that I've known for a really long time. Systems and institutions, what they do is when somebody comes to them and they have a gift or they have a role, the institution typically just filters that person's role through the process of that institution. Institutions institute institutes for the sake of the institution. Did you know that? That's what they do. I'll say that again. Institutions institute institutes for the sake of the institution. I think there's a better way, though. There's an organic way. I think the organic way, maybe you could say organizations, or maybe you could just say community. Organize the organic for the sake of the organism. There's a difference between institutional thinking and organic thinking. And I want to propose that we reframe the process of the context of being called to something, that deep feeling that you have when you just know there's something that you need to do, that you sense, that you want to study, that you want to pursue, that you want to walk towards. And I want to propose that we can reframe this. Here's one way. We can do it in seasons. Spring, summer, autumn, winter. Let's start with spring. Spring is so full of beginnings and hope, right? What could this thing be? Well, if institutional thinking, you already know what it's going to be. Well, then you already know what's going to be. But if you start at the beginning, what if we helped our loved ones become increasingly conscious and aware of whatever that thing is that they've been feeling for a long time? What if we sat and listened to them as they described their feelings of their own calling instead of telling them what their calling means? See, because what I did was I became a pastor and it didn't feel like the real me. People kept telling me that it was me. I wanted to be doing stuff like this. And I maintained a thread of that memory. I kept it hidden. I kept it hidden because in the church culture that I was in, if I told them some of the things that I had learned in hip-hop culture as a child, I knew they would reject me. So I kept that thing hidden, and I learned some things anyway. I learned in this beginning process of being a pastor because I was given a microphone and put on a stage and said, be a pastor. I don't think that they knew who it was they gave the microphone to. And here's something that I learned, and I just decided I was going to learn anyway. Even though it didn't feel like the real me, I still had that microphone, and I still had a lot of growing and growing up to do. And I learned something, at least for me, I learned that there is an art and an intentionality of preparation and presentation. And so what that led to is, I guess you could say, my summer, this self-discovery thing. In spring, there's a beginning, and in summer, there's a self-discovery. You find your own style in summer. Sometimes it rains enough, and sometimes it doesn't, but summer's still summer. And so what I found out about myself, and that applies even to right now, is that when I'm going to stand on a stage, I filter it through two main things. The first one is this. I want there to be truth in my preparation. And what I mean is when I prepare, I want everything that I do and everything that I think about to be filtered through truth to the best of my ability. Truth according to the best way I can know what truth is when I'm preparing. And then when I stand up here like I am right now, the filter is love. To the best of my ability, what I want to say to you right now is through the filter of love. Truth was in the preparation, love in the presentation. That's what I learned in my summer season. But then I sort of felt a separation. The beginnings had grown into self-discovery, and then I felt a shift. Like a separation that I knew from back in the day, but I felt it strong again. And that separation was this, that there's a difference between the calling that I feel in my heart and what everybody else is telling me that this calling is. And I noticed that over the years, I would stand up on a stage, and I would notice everybody's facing one direction except one person in this room. And I started to notice it more than ever, and it started to make me feel lonely. Like all these people are like, yes, keep preaching, preacher. Keep saying the good word, preacher. And everyone's facing this way and having a great experience together, and I was the only one that was facing this way, and I started to feel lonely. And I started to feel tired because I was imparting something, that deep thing within me that I felt when I was 3 and 5 and 10 and 15 and 20. Fast forward into my 40s, I still have this feeling hidden in me. And I'm starting to impart that. I'm starting to share that. And it's tiring sometimes. You know that feeling when we just heard, that feeling when you give and you impart truth and love, and here you go, here's the gift. It can be draining. And so when you're drained, well, you get tired. This is autumn. Things start to fall away. There becomes a separation. There's a shift. And when there's that shift, that separation, that loneliness, that draining, there has to be some sort of refilling. Well, in some traditions, the refilling would be God gives you the energy that you need again, or the Spirit of God, or things like that. But I want us to be careful. We all need to be careful that we don't try to get refilled by other people's affirmations. That leads to insecurity. Standing on a stage, facing the opposite direction of everyone else in the room, imparting something, and feeling tired and not getting refilled from the right source can lead to things like this. Am I doing good enough right now? Do you like this? Am I enough for you? Am I good enough for you? Am I okay? And see, when we do that, when we have that insecurity and we try to get refilled by other people, we can distance ourselves even further from the source of the calling. And so I found myself there in autumn, tired, lonely, wondering if I'm enough. But I still remembered that hidden feeling, the cool in the gang feeling. It was still there. I had hidden it away. And over time, there was an evolution and a growth and even a transcendence, almost like the real me was not going to be stopped. Because I think that there's growth in calling. When we feel these senses of calling, they grow, they evolve, and they transcend. And I want you to hear this very clearly. I think that senses of calling transcend religion. They transcend culture. They transcend time and space itself. And so when I realized that, this transcendence, I realized, there's a fourth season. There's something about winter, isn't there? It's not just that things are falling away. It's time for rest. It's a time to ask the real questions again. What was that feeling that I felt when I was 3? What did I feel when I was 5, 10, 15, and 20? And what might it be like if I surrounded myself with friends, family, and community instead of institutionally telling me who I am, actually listened to who I am and helped me discover my true self? Because in winter, you finally can let go. And when you let go, you can finally remember who you are. What if we let go of institutional thinking? What if we let go of institutional interpretations of who we are, and instead, what if we had an organic, decentralized approach to self-discovery for people? Not just go to the institution, they'll tell you what to do, but go to the trusted people around you, friends, family, community, and say, I have this feeling stirring inside of me. I don't know, it's from way back in the day, or way in the future, or way up there, or way in here, or all of the above, or none of the above, but I want you to help me figure out who I am. What if we listen to each other? It's pretty basic, isn't it? And so I did this. I engineered this for myself, surrounded myself with trusted friends and family, and I said, I felt this thing when I was 3, and it looked like this. Fast forward, I felt it in this way, I felt it in this way, and I felt it in this way, and I realized by listening to my own voice and listening to the people around me that I knew loved me and I loved them, that I found my true voice again. And just want to let you know, I realized my childhood dream. I shared with my family, hey, when I was 15, I wanted to get on the stage and I wanted to have everybody be happy and dance around and the DJ to go and people dance on the stage. And my 10-year-old said, you could still do that, Dad. And so I did that. And so, I couldn't help myself. In addition to dancing around and laughing, I had to write some poetry, and I did some spoken word poetry. Because, my sisters and my brothers, it's time for a renaissance of poetic justice. And that's who I am, and that's who I want to be. And so I realized this, and I realized this because of curiosity. I realized it because of encouragement. I realized it because I was told that I could actually listen to my own voice. And my sisters and my brothers around me were also listening. Who are you really, Jason? You know, in the Hebrew scriptures, when Moses asked God, who are you? What's your name? Remember this? This answer, sometimes translated as Yahweh, I am who I am, transcends time and space. I am who I am. Yahweh transcends time and space. And if you and I remember who we are, we can say the same ancient thing. Isn't that fascinating to think that we can get to a place where we can say, I am who I am. And when we say that, we would be simultaneously saying the name of God and discovering who we are. It's fascinating, isn't it? And so, my sisters and my brothers, when the deep thing calls to the deep within you, regardless of what season it is, may you never forget that you are who you are.